Hello and welcome to another Snappy Chat. This is all about learning and growing together. I'm Christine Bell. I'm a customer strategist, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here because the one thing I've found in business, building a business on your own can get really, really lonely. But guess what? We're all going through many of the similar challenges, and this is what it's all about, learning and growing together and finding community. And I'm so excited. I've got the wonderful Suzanne Mercier here with me today. She is a mindset coach, an executive coach, a leadership strategist. She's got
I think we're having some internet problems, so I'll just step in. Sorry, Christine, if that's not the case.
Well,
hi, I'm Suzanne Mercier. So you're breaking up. So
all right, go.
No, I'm so sorry. I apologize before I jumped in because you were breaking up. So my apologies. Isn't it lovely that you can trust the internet so well? Anyway, hi, I'm Suzanne Mercier, and poor Christine, I'm cut right across her. I know she tried to introduce you, but you know her, she's amazing. So I hope that you don't mind if I just hop in while everything sort of sets down. I'm Suzanne Mercier. I've known Christine for a couple of years. I'm delighted to have been asked to come onto the chat with her. Absolutely delighted. We've had similar backgrounds, actually, haven't we? Quite similar backgrounds in terms of marketing and advertising. And so now what I'm doing is I'm I struggle to use the word transformational coach, but when we go through a mindset shift that enables us to see our talents and capabilities, and then we can do what we want to do, I guess it is transformational. So I work with executives, people who are wanting to move up in their career, and they can be in their own business as well, but I'm focusing on lawyers and accountants. And I love helping people understand what's holding them back in their own mindset and enabling them to adjust that, to address the limitations, to look past that, to see the possibilities that they have, the value that they bring. And then we start working on the strategy and leadership capabilities to help them lead people in their practice, in their legal practice or their accounting practice. Over the years, I've had experience in many other industries, but that's where I'm focusing at the moment.
So great to hear from you, and I'm so glad you're here. I believe we just got some people here. Both of us are cutting up at the moment, so hopefully people will hear us. But yes, I'm so glad to be here. And the thing I love about talking to you is that you have a wealth of experience, but you also have literally learned from getting to know yourself better, and in terms of understanding how to actually grow in business, which actually starts, I think we both agreed, actually starts with the mindset. And I love that you've shared so openly with me. But if you wouldn't mind for the audience as well, when was the first time, and I know this, we're using terminology that we weren't aware of back then, but we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. And when did you first realize that something was up yourself?
Oh, about 20 years ago. But it was after the key incident that actually was the defining moment. So I'll share a little bit of that, if that's okay, because I think that it helps people understand, and maybe you can relate. And by the way, please excuse my croaky voice. I'm coming off a cough and a cold, so my apologies. So I came out of fast-moving consumer goods marketing, and if any of you have had that kind of background, you'll understand what I mean. Advertising was always the more exciting, more interesting, more sexy side of the business, if you like. And I had always dreamed of getting into advertising, so I went to George Pat's advertising after a number of years with Schwarzkopf and various other companies, Amatil, that sort of thing, doing fast-moving consumer goods. So I wound up at George Pat's, and I thought, great, I'm going to get to go to lunches, I'm going to have all this. I didn't realize, but it was hard work. It was really hard work. And you know that because you've been in the industry as well. But what was probably the most difficult thing for me was making the transition from knowing everything about a brand, absolutely everything, to knowing the one thing that was going to make people change their mind or confirm their buying choices. And so I really struggled with, what did I let go? What did I keep on? How did I arrive at those insights that would feed into a 30-second television commercial? And I can tell you, over the years, there were more than one creative people who were so frustrated with me because I just didn't get it. And I worked so hard. I really did. I was, sort of over preparing, second guessing, sort of tentatively putting my my opinions forward in client meetings and that sort of thing. It took me a long time to feel even reasonable. There were clients who were a dream to work with, and there were other clients who were really tough because they had been taught, how to train an advertising agency, I think it would have been. So I was really struggling, and I went to a client event. I think I invited myself actually to a client event in our tap room, which was the where everybody met. I just turned up because I think I'd been out to lunch that particular day, and turned up and sat down and squashed myself in between two people and said, "Hi, how are you doing?" Anyway, one of the directors came over to me and said, "Suzanne, can I have a word?" So I had a chat with him, and he said, "How do you think you're going?" And I said, "Well, I really don't know." And he said, "Neither do we." I was like, "Oh, okay." So that really put me on my guard, if you like. And so the next year, I worked like crazy trying to fix whatever it was that I was doing wrong. And then I got a telephone call from the managing director's secretary to say, "Suzanne, Alex Hamill wants to see you now." And my heart just dropped. I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm actually going to be fired. And I was so beside myself because I'd seen people fired before. And anyone in advertising, you know this, two big burly security guards come to you to your desk, and they watch as you put your personal things into the box. Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. Don't take any databases or anything like that. So, and then they frog march you off the property, and everybody knows what's going on. They all just freeze because nobody wants to be associated with that, but they also, feel bad for you as well. So this is what was going through my head as I went up the stairs to his office to give myself a bit more time. When I got to his office, he was on the phone with his back to me down, and I was trying to compose my face and trying to look like I was confident about being there. I was terrified, absolutely terrified that I was going to cry. That was the thing that got me the most. Anyway, Alex turned around and he said, "Suzanne, congratulations." And I just said, "What?" He said, "Yes, congratulations. You're the first woman on the board of George Pat's Advertising." And I just looked at him and I said, "Why?" Because it just didn't compute. I just didn't understand what he was talking about. He said, "Well, you're doing a great job." I thought, clearly I've still got them fooled. They haven't got a clue. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, so I spent another year or so on the board, and I don't think I made any meaningful contribution. I was just waiting for somebody to say, "Suzanne, what on earth are you doing here?" And fortunately, nobody did. But because that was all going through my head, I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, so I left. And I didn't see the value that I had brought. The day that I was leaving, people said to me, "Oh my gosh, we've just lost a role model." And I'm thinking, "Oh, you poor things! If I'm your role model," I just didn't get it. Did not understand it. And then I started my own business, and what I didn't get was that I took all my problems with me. And many of you might relate to this. I actually took that whole feeling of not being good enough with me. And I jumped from one area to another. I couldn't settle on something because if somebody else was making that work, that was what I should do. Or if somebody else was doing this. And then almost like contradictorily, if I was doing something and somebody else joined me, I thought, well, that's not going to work because I could have to be the only one that's doing this. So I just sabotaged myself left, right, and center right the way through for about 5 years. And then somebody suggested I might like to go and do some personal development. So I did. And I continued that learning. I didn't learn about imposter syndrome there, but I continued that learning, and I realized finally I had a name for it. In actual fact, somebody told me that I was an imposter. And I got it. So I went and I looked it up and thought, oh my goodness, that's what I've been doing. So that's when I discovered the imposter syndrome and all the lessons that come with that. So that was how I found out about it.
And I love you sharing that. And I think so many of us can relate to that, because whether it has a name or not, it's that little creeping feeling deep inside in our heart and our mind that says, maybe I'm not good enough. What if I can't do it? What if I get found out? What if this whole what if comes up the whole time? Maybe I'm saying the right thing. Maybe I'm saying the wrong thing. And it's so debilitating. And I must admit, I have come from a low self-esteem my whole life, and it definitely crippled me in working for agencies as well, because it would make me work harder and harder. Like you were saying, you work so hard, but I was always looking for other people's validation rather than going, hey, guess what, Christine, I'm doing a great job. I don't need your validation. And that led for me to burnout. So it can come in many different ways that it shows up. But I think many of us out there can resonate with what you're saying in terms of that little creeping voice that actually sabotages ourselves, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think the imposter syndrome is something that people are now sort of touting, and it's almost a badge of honor in some industries. But essentially, for me, what I realized was it was a case of mistaken identity. It was a case of me not understanding who I was and what I could offer. And that's not an arrogant statement. I think we've all got amazing things that we could offer if we can only see them, and if we can only accept that they are good enough. Because one of the big patterns, as you know, of imposter syndrome is perfection. And that's what sort of robs us of our joy, I think, because we've got this idea of perfection, and it sits up here and we can't even describe what it is. We just know that if somebody else can add to what we've said, then we weren't perfect. If somebody else can find a fault with or sort of question something that we've written or said, is not perfect. And instead of looking at all the work that we've done and how far we've come, we focus on that gap. And what we do is we actually confirm that we're not good enough, and to ourselves, because that's what we're looking for. And perfection is a judgment that nobody can live up to. So that was the big thing. And I think the other thing, as you pointed out, was the external validation, needing somebody else to tell me that I was good enough, circumstances, or people's comments, or well done. And it's like, even then it was like, oh no, not really. And I'd look for, I wasn't even able to accept that when somebody said that to me. So it's a tough situation to be in.
It's a really tough situation. I'm just going to say Royce is here. Guy Pierce is here. Thank you so much. We've got someone from Chicago too. Not sure who it is. I can't see. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it. Royce is amazing. If you don't know Royce, he is a fantastic marketeer and copywriter as well, out of Arizona, and he flies big planes too. So he's very interesting. And he's a he used to be on the radio. But back to this conversation, and I don't think Royce has suffered for this. Maybe he has. I don't know. In terms of this,
women are different though. In the way that they
that's a very good point. It's a good point. But it's that thing of, even when people give you a compliment, maybe it feels good for 2 minutes, but then the mind will go, oh, hold on, did they really mean that? Did they not see that? Maybe they were just being nice to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a really tough experience, and I think what it does, I think it's very difficult for other people to be around it as well. Because I've had friends and people who said, what's wrong with you? Look, achieving. It's like, no, but I didn't do this and I didn't do that. We mismatch. We look for what's wrong, not what's right. We find it very hard to accept the successes that we have. We find it very hard to recognize that valuable to contribute, which makes it very difficult. And being in your own business, you haven't got the surrounding of a structure. You haven't got an organization that'll pay you a salary every week, and it's their brand that's on. And it didn't really come out as much as it did. Like when I was in advertising, it didn't come out as much there as it did when I was in my own business, because suddenly I was the front line. And that's when it really came up and I had to deal with it. So you know that feeling, don't you?
I know that feeling so well. I used to be pretty confident coming in, presenting to clients when I was at agencies, no problem. And it was strange. Suddenly I was on my own and I was scared to get on stage, and I was nervous about presenting me, because suddenly it was about me and my brand. And I found that very intimidating, and it took a lot of learning to do. Guys saying learning never stops, training never ends. Absolutely agree with that. But that's the whole point. Sometimes we can sabotage ourselves so well that we don't even get on stage to learn and grow. Yeah. So for me, it's been really around going, okay, I'm where I'm at in business. I'm learning. And part of that is making mistakes. Part of that is not always saying the right thing. Part of that is when internet crashes on whilst I'm doing a live, and you just got to go with it and go, this happens to all of us. But for me, the big thing has been like really coming back to seeing my pattern that I have still until this day. I saw it a couple of weeks ago. I've been looking for breadcrumb validation from others, which is my pattern from childhood. And guess what? If it's still playing out, I'm going to keep going for those types of people who only gives me the breadcrumbs. When in fact, my learning is to stop caring what other people think and learn to validate myself.
Yes, absolutely. It's a tough one, and you know, we all know that lovely metaphor of the onion and all the layers that we wind up peeling back, and we think we've got it handled until life comes and gives us another little bit, you know, of a jolt. And I think that it's just about accepting that it is a lifelong situation. I may never get past the imposter syndrome, and it's certainly a lot less than I ever experienced before. And it doesn't. I know the situations that it comes up in. I know that it's me. I get almost immediately what I'm doing, and now I can have a bit of a laugh about it. It's like, oh my gosh, it caught me again. I can't believe that. And off, but it's tough. It really is. But then, you know, it's also enabled me to have huge empathy for anybody else who goes through this, because having seen what I sacrificed, yes, I can say I walked away from the job. What I sacrificed was any kind of confidence at all from it. You know, like it was, I had such low self-esteem, and I would call it the state of low self-esteem rather than the trait, if that makes a difference, because it was situations that would trigger it. It wasn't there all the time. There were times when I was, you know, sort of had boundless confidence, but then in certain situations, I would lose it completely. And so what's really important for me was to help people understand what their triggers are, because those triggers then tell them what's the story that's sitting underneath that. And then we can start to work with dismantling those beliefs, because they're all childhood stuff. They're stories that we've inherited. And we don't necessarily get to question them unless we are aware enough to start thinking, what's going on here, you know?
Totally agree with that. We just got Royce saying, that's why I keep a sign that reminds me, hey, you screwed up way bigger things than this before. Totally agree. And we got Janice here too. So thank you, Janice, for being here.
Oh, lovely. I love that. Thank you. Absolutely. And we still survive. And what do they say? You know, I mean, the greatest learnings come from sort of falling off the edge of our comfort zone. So, yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. I love that sign. I'll have to listen back to the recording and get one.
Yeah, and I think it's about that discomfort you just mentioned. It's almost getting used to being in discomfort to take us outside, you know, to stop sabotaging ourselves and walking away from a job or from doing a presentation or doing a sales meeting. Instead, it's about going, I know what's going on. I'm aware of it. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to be kind and loving to myself in doing it, right?
Yes, yeah, it's a journey. It's really interesting because, you know, I didn't read the whole book, and it's not a great corporate book, but somebody pointed out a section of a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And there's a section in there where they talk about change. And the metaphor is that, you know, you walk down the street and you see a hole, or you fall in a hole, you don't know where you are, you don't know how to get out. Somebody has to come along and help you out. And the second time you walk down that street, you fall in the hole, you are, but you don't know how to get out, so somebody still has to help you. The third time you walk down the street, you know you've fallen in a hole, you know what it is, you can climb out yourself, which is great. The fourth time you walk down the street, you see the hole and you walk around it, and the fifth time you walk down a different street. And I love that metaphor, because, you know, I can track where I am in various aspects of how the imposter syndrome shows up for me. So, okay, well, I'm kind of getting there, I'm getting that handled, I'm, you know, not quite there yet, and I'm getting there. But things that bothered me 5 years ago don't bother me now. The challenge with imposter syndrome is not just that you experience it, but it's what you do when you've been triggered. And I've developed a series of 7 coping behaviors, because, you know, we go into those because the worst thing we can think of is vulnerability, and, you know, when we're experiencing imposter syndrome. So, you know, we might get defensive, we might take it all personally and react, or we might hide like a shrinking violet and look at, you know, sort of doing everything to avoid being seen, but wanting somebody to still see our great work. So these behaviors are quite strange to other people, but when you know, that person looks so confident, why aren't they speaking up in a meeting? You know, those kinds of things. So it's really looking at, you know, why do we experience it? What triggers it? How do we cope with it? And now what do we do? Which is always a bit.
And I love that, because what you do in your work is really focusing, yes, we acknowledge what's going on, but how can we keep moving forward, and what action can we take when everything we want to do is just hide away potentially, or not speak to anyone, or just make it all go away?
Yes, absolutely. I have a whole series of very simple tools, and I can't say they've all come from me. I don't even know where I've picked them up, some of them. But one of them that I use a lot with my clients is to get them to start self-monitoring. So if there's something that happens and I have a certain response, typically we think that response is because of that other person, but in actual fact, it's not, as we all know, when we're logically thinking about it. It's the way that we've interpreted the situation.
Yeah.
So I can remember I was always so externally focused in a meeting, or sitting in a meeting one time, and this person came in and said hello to everybody except me. And I sat there and thought, gosh, what have I done? That's terrible. That's awful. That person is really mean. That person's awful. And what I didn't realize until I thought about it afterwards was that I had actually sat back and kind of slid down in my seat almost, which was just like, what did I do that for? But once you see what you do, yeah, absolutely. And then once you see what you do, you can start to say, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. Now what can I do differently?
Yeah. So it becomes really practical, actually. It's a practical step-by-step practice to move beyond our comfort into a new space where we feel more and more confident in ourselves. And how do we change as well the inner dialogue that's going on at the same time? Can you hear me, Suzanne? Are you back?
So sorry, I didn't catch that. I think my internet might be playing up. Sorry. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost you for a minute.
So no, that's okay.
So
obviously there's some actions we could take that puts us into a place where we, learn and grow. What about the mindset? What about here when the voice, that inner voice, starts putting us down? What are the tricks there? How do we cope with that? We might have internet problems again.
I'm not hearing, so I don't know if I'm the one with the problem of the internet, but let me just answer the question. So I think you're asking me about, what do you do about mindset now? Well, we know that mindset is 85% success of anything that we do. So it really is about being intensely curious about why we do what we do, and not judgmental, not giving us a hard time, just really say, well, that's interesting. Why did I react that way? And learning about ourselves and really sort of focusing on how we're responding and trying to understand what that is. So that's a personal journey. But I think what that does also is gives us an immense, as I touched on earlier, an immense empathy towards other people. So if you've done the work to understand your own mindset, everybody else has limitations as well. And what that does is it means that I can be less judgmental when I'm dealing with others, hopefully not judgmental at all, but I think we're humans. And sort of try and understand that other person rather than necessarily step into and say, well, what the hell are they going on about? That just doesn't make any sense at all, or whatever we might be doing. But I think that to do the work on the mindset is so powerful, because what it does enables you then to see all the capabilities and talents and successes that you've already had. They're part of you already. You don't need more. You don't need to be more. You just need to see who you are and recognize the value of what you bring. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is I'm enough. I'm enough.
And I love that, because it's really a journey of self-love, to really learn to love ourselves.
Yes, it certainly is. I think that it also enables us to love others and to situations from that heart open space, which means that we can resolve conflicts more easily. We can we can create connections and work together more effectively. All the things that are key business drivers, whether it's our own business or somebody else's, we can come to that space because we are okay being who we are. We're okay making a mistake, as you said earlier. We're okay to learn from others, and in fact that's so critical for us to do that. Otherwise we go through the world with our own assumptions. So yeah, so important.
Yeah. Exactly. And it starts with us. So like you said, unless we do the work ourselves, we aren't able to actually give it to others. So if we want more love in the world, we got to be more loving towards ourselves. Now Guy Pearce, he's got 3 P's: prepare, practice, and present. Can you hear me?
I can now. I am so sorry if that's my end. I've just had new internet put in and it's supposed to be better and bigger. So my apologies.
It could be LinkedIn too. We don't know. That's okay. I was saying, Guy's saying he's got prepare, practice, and present. And he says your mindset is important. Train and exercise your mind to improve every day. Be consistent. Consistent is a key word, I think.
I would say flexible. Not that consistency isn't important, but I would say flexible, because like today, we don't know what's going to happen. We can prepare all we like. And that is absolutely critical that we do the preparation. But then if something goes wrong or something doesn't turn out quite the way you do, I guess a laugh always helps, doesn't it? So that's the way
exactly.
the Aussies
That's all you can do.
I know. So how do people handle that in the States? I know that we should probably have a bit of a laugh, and my cat just joined me. Sorry. So I think that's really important, to have a sense of humor and have a good chuckle at ourselves as much as anything else.
I think you're absolutely right. We can never control every situation. When you go live, you have no idea what's going to happen, but we've got a lovely audience who's hanging in there, so we appreciate that. And we're going to finish up now anyway. And please reach out to both me and Suzanne later. We love this topic, both of us. Suzanne is an expert in it. I'm learning because of my journey. And I think a lot of us can resonate with this journey. It might show up differently, but it's for all of us. So how can people reach out to you, and how can they find you and talk to you more? Because you've got such a wealth of experience here.
Oh, thank you. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to strike up conversations. I think that's too often things are just sort of voices in the dark on LinkedIn or other places. So I love to connect. And I've also got a book on imposter syndrome up on Kindle, which is called Liberate Leadership, Everything That You Should Know About Imposter Syndrome and How That Impacts Leadership. Because I know leadership is the big word. So it's a book that's been around for a little while. It's last updated in 2016, so it is a little, but the concepts are still right, and it explains my approach to that as well. So and if I can help you in any way, just let me know. Always delighted to have a conversation. Thank you.
I love that so much, and I love that you got a book as well. Randy's just joined. I'm so sorry. We're about to finish up here. We miss having you here as well. His time zone doesn't always work, but we're glad to see you for 2 seconds, Randy. I hope you can come back. I am, by the way, for anyone who is watching Snappy on a regular basis, I will be taking a few weeks off. I'm finally going back to Denmark to see my family after 5 years. And I'm going to spend the time with them rather than being on LinkedIn too much. So I will be back at the end of May with more LinkedIn and more Snappy Chats. But until then, I'm going to take a little break to spend time with family, because that is by far the most important thing in life, is family and friends. And we never know what's going to happen next. So
absolutely. We'll have a wonderful trip. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's great to at least see your names. Thank you.
Yeah, and Guy is saying it's a great sense of humor is always a good thing. Absolutely. And Royce is saying this was so insightful. We appreciate you. We apologize about the LinkedIn or the internet or whoever it is. We don't know these things.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, everyone. And thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.